Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Association Rockstars, where we hear about the journey and insights of some amazing association executives and partners who are building the association industry of tomorrow. I'm your host, Lowell Aplebaum, CEO and Strategy Catalyst at Vista, Cova, where we partner with organizations on strategic facilitation. And I'm very happy to have with me today Juan Amador, CAE. Juan has over 15 years of experience in recruitment and outreach to special populations, strategic planning, developing partnerships, and facilitating the work of national committees. He's currently the Director of Constituent Engagement at the Association of American Medical Colleges. And as a critical leader in AAMC's relationships and partnerships with its many constituent groups, he advances the strategic value of the association and is also responsible for implementing learning and leadership opportunities that help members grow in their professional roles, enhance their career development, and strengthen their leadership competencies. Prior to joining the AAMC, Juan worked at the National Prevention Information Network of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Juan is someone who has a love for components and constituents. There's many reasons why I'm glad to have you today. Welcome. So happy that you're with us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
So we like to start these conversations with knowledge that those that we're talking to have had a journey and had a path of success, of learning, that have brought them to be a rock star in our space. And so along that way, you've obviously found within yourself places of strength. And so we like to first ask, what is a superpower that you bring to the table? What is a place of excellence that you find that you apply either in work or in life?
First of all, I have to say that I love this question because I'm a big comic book fan, and it kind of made me think of my best superheroes. But actually, what I came down to, and I think in my role, is I am an amplifier. I in my day-to-day, whether it's personal or at home, I like to amplify things. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. Taking a small career fair for 200 pre-medical students and turning it into a 2,000 minority student career fair. Taking someone's personal experience, like a faculty member, and helping them become a full professor in academic medicine, and at the end, at the same time, helping them become a national voice within our whether it's national, state, or local, or even personally. I take myself as an example. Anything that I do, the room that I'm invited or where I'm at, I want to amplify my voice because there's so many missing voices in the room. As a Latino or Latinx, I represent a group that needs to be in the room, but there's others who, one, haven't yet found their voice, or two, it just needs to be amplified and invited into that conversation, into that room.
I feel like we need to get you a cape with a amplifier symbol on the back. I like the superpower. As you're talking about helping others find their voice, right? The power of amplification, you both reference your own voice and others. Can you talk about, as you go into rooms where you see others whose voice should be amplified, like how do you see that? How do you help them amplify their voice?
There's several ways. I like to be very straight, very forthcoming, very transparent. When I see someone who needs help, I offer it, and then that's where I really think about what can I do to help, and it becomes very much of strategy. And so it is connecting a student, for example, that wants to be a doctor but doesn't have an idea what it takes. And so I just go into my Rolodex and I'm like, here's an advisor. Here's a member of the admissions committee at one of the premier medical schools. Here is the dean at Harvard, Joan Reed, who's a mentor of mine. And can you please talk to the student or this faculty member? When I think of Native populations, Alaskan Natives, I think of, hey, in the data, I don't see you. Even if it's just 0.1, I need to see that 0.1 represented in the data. And even in photographs or so when I walk into buildings, I'm always looking at the photographs, the pictures. Who's being represented? Does it include me? Do I see myself, or do I see my community?
No, we live in such a different moment in time right now. Societal disruptors all around, and living really in isolation. As a special power, a superpower of amplification, do you find this virtual environment to hinder the ability to amplify the voices that you think need to be? Or do you think it actually is helpful in some ways because it's so easy to set up a Zoom and see faces?
I think it's a yes and a no. So I'll say yes because cost is for everyone, not just, no matter what association you're at or industry you're at, cost is always prohibited. And so, going to a conference registration, going to travel, all that stuff. But being virtual now, I am seeing more participation from other groups or other individuals that haven't had the opportunity to participate. I think of the many staff members that help run associations. They're really not in the C-suite, they're not in middle management, but their jobs are important. And so I look at the mailroom. Someone who's working at the mailroom and delivers my mail every day now has an opportunity to attend a virtual town hall to discuss issues about racism and share his or her experience. I look at administrative specialists or assistants that we have who manage our schedule, makes our life really important and easy to do things at times, but now they have the opportunity. And I also look at industry leaders in terms of just having them share their voices and to the masses, not just at that conference. And so, yeah, there is current opportunity right now to amplify because we're virtual, but I do still miss the in-person. And I think the way that the in-person works is that's where we develop and nurture relationships. And that's so important. And I can't tell you how important it is to me. Over the years, I have not been able to do some goals or some plans unless I ask for it from my support network, my mentors, my colleagues.
Yeah, I love the correlation to relationship building. I mean, it's such at the heart of what we do, and for many we speak to, at the heart of who they are. I imagine, I'd love to hear your journey from the CDC over to the association world. The power of network and building relationships. Very different between those worlds? Similar? What did you find when you came into the association world?
Well, like many of our colleagues, I didn't know that I was working in an association. I just thought it was a job. I applied for a job, interviewed for it, and I was happy to land at the Association of American Medical Colleges. To be honest, I didn't really know who AAMC was. And so I took it as a job. And so it wasn't until I was probably a director where I began to realize the power of association, and more important, my voice within that association. And so having a U.S. medical school dean call me or email me or invite me out to an event just to get my opinion or just to say, what can I do about this? I'm like, wait a minute, you're at the top of the leadership ranks and you're asking me. So it's a little bit humbling, but at the same time, it's again, learning to find that voice and making sure that I use it to amplify and to really bring in different perspectives. And so, when I was contracting with the CDC, it was very, I would say, very mechanical. Billable hours. You try to develop the relationship with the program, the directors of the CDC. However, it's totally different because in the association industry, I do feel like it's all about relationships. It's all about investing time in developing and managing, and not just going to someone and saying and asking for help when you need it. But it's over time, because when I feel like personally, if you ask, I'll give. But I expect for you also to give back to someone. It doesn't have to be me, but you have to bring someone along with you.
I love the idea of bringing someone along with you. Along your journey, I sort of have two questions. The first is when did it like settle in? When did you start to embody that this isn't just a job, but a profession that you find resonance with, that you wanted to be in? Like what was that moment of shift, or when did you realize it, that associations were a good home?
It was thanks to a couple of colleagues, I'll say. The first one was Valerie Clark, who was already involved outside with other associations, and she kept asking me to be involved, and I really kept turning her down. I landed with my involvement at ASAE. And that transition helped realize, like a mentor told me mine. She was like, you could be great at your job where you're at, but you have to find a home somewhere. And when I came to ASAE, it felt like a home for associations. And so that was one, the second critical transition. I think the third one became really with meeting a lot of special individuals through the Scholars Program, my class of 2012 to 2014, meeting other associations executives and just watching them from afar. It was just, I knew it clicked. I was like, this is it. I am an association professional, and I'm going to make that very visible and let everyone know it. And so I took my CAE exam, and therefore I felt like I had accomplished that goal of being an association professional.
Well, hashtag CAE proud. We love the CAE here, so all about that. You mentioned Valerie, but I'm interested in the journey. You're very much clearly a relationship-based person, right? Like that's the amplification as well. Along the way, have there been mentors that have helped or influenced, and what has the experience been like?
So I like to say and share that I'm a product of a mentors. Many mentors over the years. I came from a very humble beginnings. My mother came here with 3 kids, single mom, and so her one task for us was to go to school and get your education. And, it wasn't until I got to college where I had my first mentoring. I didn't even know that word. But I went into her office and I just saw albums on her desk. And I was like, what are these? She was like, open them. And I opened them, and it was just her travel all around the world. And so that taught me right there to aspire to something, to look around the world, to look beyond just where I live at. And then professionally, I've had mentors that have guided me when I started at the AAMC. It was like, you need to come to these meetings at 7:30 every morning because you need to be in the room. And I'm like, who meets at 7:30? I'm only getting up. And I was like, right. But for that 1 year, I showed up at 7:30 every day. And what that taught me was I got to talk to the president and the CEO. I got to talk to board members. I got to meet NIH leaders. I got to funding foundations, and again, developing those relationships over time. And then I don't want to forget even peer mentors. Right now there's so many that I can name, but I take pride in sharing that. Sean Boynes, Irving Washington, Dante Shannon, they've helped me out in not only in terms of growing, but certainly in terms of guiding and act like a soundboard sometimes. I'm like, there's so much in the world happening that in the work that sometimes I just need someone, and these are the individuals I can go to. And I'll say lastly, there are other individuals, and there's those luminaries that I again, so many to name, but the one I will say, because I owe a lot to her, is Susan Wheeling. So she is known throughout the association. She was my mentor for a year. And what she taught me was, or actually what she reinforced was, leave your legacy behind. Whatever you do in the association industry, leave your legacy for someone else to carry it on and move it forward.
I love that. I love that. You, I'm teeing you up at the end. I'm going to ask you what is the legacy you want to leave behind, but I won't go there yet. But since you asked that, that's where we're going to go eventually. In the example of getting up at 7:30 in the morning, besides me imagining just how many cappuccinos and shots of espresso I would need to have for that, there's something there, right? About like someone else opened the door, so you were in the room, right? Like you were in the room, and so all of a sudden, that created the opportunity for access, right? That created the opportunity for relationship establishment and growth. As you think about the different associations you see, our community, do you see any opportunities for us to create more opportunities for others to be in the room? Like how do we help do that for others?
I think the association industry, we do have opportunities to open more doors, and I'll preface this and focus on minority populations, underserved. So, yes, you can have all of the receptions. You can have virtual gatherings, but at the end of the day, it's really about helping someone connect one-on-one. And it's hard right now because we're in a pandemic, but it means maybe reaching out to someone and inviting them to a virtual coffee. It may mean that, hey, I'm looking at my organization and I don't see a lot of brown, Black, Native American, Alaskan Natives, Asians, Pacifics, LGBT individuals. It means looking at oneself and having the heart to say, I really need to put this effort into inviting people and creating that welcoming environment. And so when I look at the executive directors in my network, I look at the type of a culture that they're creating in their organizations. Is it welcoming? Can you walk through that door and feel like you're welcomed versus can you walk through that door and feel like, what am I doing here?
That's such an intangible and essential feeling, right? Like you can measure the number of people that walk through the door. It is much harder to measure how welcome they feel once they take that step. And yet that's really where we need to go in terms of the experiences we need to create if we're actually going to be a dynamically diverse and inclusive society. The mentors that you mentioned, of course, Irving, Dante, Sean, and Michelle, along with it, with their Text the Table series they've started. Much of what you're saying just resonates with the conversations we're hearing, and I think the insights you're sharing add to this story of the self-reflection, as you said, that many of us need to do. I promised you I was going to get back to it, so before I have to let you go, I'm going to ask the last question. As you look to your future, as you look to the rock star status that you are going to continue to build and the impact you're going to continue to make, what do you hope your legacy will be?
A couple of things. I think overall, I just want to make sure that I opened as many doors as possible to as many individuals in underserved communities. And there's so many to name, but I think everything that I do, I could tie back to giving back to the community. And so, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I want her to one day know that I donated to a foundation, I volunteered, I helped someone with their career, I'm present where I need to be. I would say that another part of my legacy, I want to share it much broader to anyone who's watching right now. Is like if you're early in your career, get a mentor. But you have to commit. Getting a mentor doesn't mean that mentor does everything for you. You really do have to commit and put the work into yourself. If you're mid-career, I would say develop your network, develop that community, develop your relationships, because they become so important, not just to work, but certainly they translate into your personal life. And when life happens, you never know who you are going to tap into. And then I'll say, if you're an executive at the C-suite, please change the culture at your organizations. Look around and invite people, and make sure that your boards are diverse. Make sure you have different voices. And the luminaries, just give us more opportunities. All the rock stars are out there, and we just need to find them.
Well, it's been a pleasure to speak with Juan today. Present and future luminary in the making, sir. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit of insight into your journey, into your vision. And please compliment your daughter on her artwork hanging there in the background. It's beautiful.
Those are the masterpieces, and I will. Thank you for inviting me and having me today.
Well, we want to, of course, thank Juan, as well as to thank everyone who joined us today. As always, a big thank you to Amy Hager, who's making all the magic happen behind the scenes and interacting with you all on the social media platforms. And thank you to each and every one of you for joining us, for helping us raise the profiles, not just of the important organizations that we work for and that we grow and build, but those behind the scenes that are making them run and that are leading our industry to a better tomorrow. Many Association Rockstars out there. We'd love to find and speak to more of you. Until next time, Association Rock On.